I'm a liberal and a proud socialist, Mr. Speaker.
Steven Guilbeault is back. The funny thing about the cabinet appointments this week is that they changed the names of so many. There's no longer a labor minister and there's no longer a heritage minister. But that's what Steven Guilbeault got. When we come back, what that means for this democracy.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
We need political change. But we also need to resolve to resist. Yes, please like the station. Happy Sunday, everybody. We're back again. Hope your weekend's going very, very well. But Steven Guilbeault is the Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture. And you think, well, that sounds innocuous, but means he's in charge of the CBC, he's in charge of parks, he's in charge of heritage, and he's in charge of the internet censorship operation that the Liberal government has been all about. Started under Trudeau, continuing under Mark Carney. Well, we'll get to Guilbeault in a second. Just some comments about this cabinet. Excellent article, by the way, from the National Post that you can find. This went up this morning. I just wanted to read something from it. Prime Minister Mark Carney's cabinet hasn't even been around a week, and it's produced what should be a month's worth of gaffes. It's an omen so bad that even many Carney backers are slumping in disappointment, taken by surprise at how swiftly their hopes were dashed. Now, specifically, what's wrong with this cabinet? Well, Guilbeault, and we'll say more about this later, but Guilbeault is in charge of implementing the Online Streaming Act, which is essentially controlling content on the internet, including a station like this. It's vague right now as to how it's going to be enforced. There's going to be penalties or fines, but it's, once again, it is government control of the internet. And chief censor will be Steven Guilbeault. So Guilbeault was a bad choice to even have in the cabinet. But of course, and when I showed this clip the other day, but when Guilbeault was questioned about pipelines, he was talking like he's the environment minister. That's really what he wanted. But he was talking, and I think I'm quite accurate to say he was freelancing. But Guilbeault immediately took to dismissing the need for new pipelines, perpetuating the myth of peak oil, and peddling the falsity that Canada's newest pipeline was running at under half capacity. In fact, it's running at 77% capacity. But who else is in there? Chrystia Freeland. Sean Fraser is probably the dumbest choice. Well, no, maybe Gregor Robertson. But Sean Fraser started off his tenure by telling the media, heading into a new cabinet's first meeting, that he intends to work from home. In December, he had announced he planned not to run again, to spend more time with his amazing family. And another candidate was lined up for his seat, only for him to unresign 3 months later after Carney's ascent. And by the way, this is the article I'm reading from here. This is one of the worst cabinets ever put together. Sean Fraser was a failure as a housing minister. He was a failure as an immigration minister. Now he's the Attorney General and Minister of Justice. Failing upwards. Crime is already worsening in Canada, and citizens increasingly feel unprotected by the system, which seems more interested in balancing racial scales and excusing any criminal that can spin a victimhood narrative. It's a bad sign that the Attorney General, one of the most critical roles in the federal cabinet, is already planning how to not fully devote himself to the job. And of course, Melanie Joly's back, this time as industry. She was I would say, an utter failure as a foreign affairs minister. But that's where we are, folks. And Steven Guilbeault. And it's an excellent article by Tristan Hopner at the First Reading, part of the National Post. But this is the guy who is in charge of monitoring the internet. This, I think, is ominous. Very, very ominous. Because you can bet we're going to see an Online Harms Act resurrected as well. This is just the beginning. Just the beginning. But of course, here's Guilbeault in his younger days.
The world's tallest building today to tell the world not to be fooled by the Liberal government. As the talk on climate change starts, we want to tell the world that the Bush and Canadian administration are out to kill the Kyoto Protocol.
Yeah, there's Guilbeault in 2001, after he had just tried to scale the CN Tower and was arrested for that. But you remember how Carney was talking during the election? He doesn't want you to remember this. He wants
We are in a crisis. We are in a crisis, the worst crisis of our lifetimes, including the fiscal crisis that Mr. Krayden and Mr. Martin faced.
So we're in a crisis, all right. It's called Mark Carney. And he duped Canadians because he lifted the tariffs, we know now, after meeting with Donald Trump, after talking to Donald Trump. So it's nice to be right, but I said this throughout the whole campaign. This was a phony war. This was a phony campaign, elbows up, just idiocy. It was all scare tactics. It was all designed to make Canadians afraid. And it worked just well enough. But here he is. He took the tariffs off and he didn't even tell anybody. And now, of course, he's not having a budget. Canada, do we need a budget? Yeah, we do. But I like if Pierre Poilievre just put this out this morning. And this is an excellent synopsis of what this cabinet is.
First press conference, Mr. Carney talked a good game about reversing Liberal policies in these areas, but now we have to find out if he was serious. And so far, it's not a promising start. The first disappointment is, unfortunately, his cabinet. He appointed Trudeau's old team and Trudeau's old advisors. Steven Guilbeault, whose radical green agenda would shut down all future developments in our resource industry, is still the minister responsible for Quebec. Sean Fraser was the immigration minister who caused the immigration crisis, the housing minister who gave us the housing crisis, and now he's the minister responsible for addressing the Liberal crime crisis. It seems like he is the master at failing upward. Chrystia Freeland, who as finance minister hiked capital gains tax and carbon taxes and massively grew our debt to the point where we now spend $1 billion a week on interest, stays in the cabinet. Then there's Gary Anadesangari, the new Minister of Public Safety, who said the actual crimes, the actual issues around bail are quite sound, and they are embedded in, codified in law right now, as in to say that there's nothing wrong with the system. Well, in fact, there's everything wrong, as we see from the growing crime wave on our streets. Then there's François-Philippe Champagne, Trudeau's Minister of Everything, who never really managed to do anything. He was the Minister of Industry, during which we had the worst economic growth of any country in the G7. And now he's in charge of the budget. Then there's Joly, LeBlanc, Haidu, Anand. Anand was the president of the Treasury start. The first disappointment pushed for total legalization of hard control. In all, 14 Trudeau ministers are now.
Now, did you see that statistic? How many times did you hear Justin Trudeau or Chrystia Freeland say that Canada had the lowest debt to GDP ratio in the G7? We have the lowest GDP in the G7, and it has been a disaster.
On Carney's cabinet, it's more of the same when Canada needs real change. Even the new additions are problematic. Ryder Robertson was the mayor of Vancouver, who pushed for total legalization of hard drugs, distribution of tax-funded opioids. During his time there was a 600. But if he was serious, And so far, during which change, tax-funded opioids during his.
We're having a little trouble with her. How many people have died of overdoses in Vancouver and British Columbia, especially Vancouver? All those so-called supervised or safe injection sites haven't been saving any lives. And this mayor, how many deaths are on his conscience, or if he has one? How many? He encouraged the legalization of toxic, deadly drugs. Vancouver is a wasteland. I don't know if you have been there recently, but it used to be the crown jewel of Canadian cities. Beautiful mountains, the ocean, beaches. And I grew up on Vancouver Island, was always in Vancouver. It was just a wonderful city to visit. Safe? It's a wasteland now. It is an absolute wasteland. And this man, this Gregor Robertson, was the mayor of this city for 10 years, and he was directly responsible for its decline into what it is now. One massive drug den. That's how I would describe Vancouver today.
Time there was a 600% increase in overdoses. Now he's the housing minister. Well, what's his record on housing? Well, he increased housing taxes in Vancouver by 141%. And the result was that housing costs went up by 149%, more than doubling the costs and giving Vancouver, his city, the most expensive housing prices in all of North America. Now, Mr. Carney puts this gentleman in charge of housing. If this is the new blood that Mr. Carney is bringing into the cabinet, then sadly for Canadians, nothing is going to change. And the role of the Conservative Party will be more important.
Once again, here's poor Pierre is not able to sit in the House of Commons because he did not win his seat. He won't be sitting in the House of Commons for probably about 2 or 3 months. And it's a difficult place to be. There's been other opposition leaders. It's been a long time since the leader of the official opposition didn't have a seat. But it's very inconvenient because all you can essentially do, as someone who worked on the Hill, all you can really do is scrum outside of the lobby. You can't even walk. Well, yeah, he can walk inside the lobby, but he cannot go into the House of Commons. So he's spending a lot of time in the lobby. But as I said, this is going to be a very difficult race for him in Battle River, Crowfoot. Not that he's not going to win it. Not that he's not going to win it handily or easily, but it's going to be very contentious because the Alberta independence debate is just gearing up. And let me tell you, if this is any indication of where Carney is going, and it is, obviously, we're in for a rough ride, and it's going to exacerbate the tensions and the conflict in Alberta and throughout Western Canada. But it's going to be a direct incentive for Albertans to vote for separation. So we are headed into some tough period. And what does Mark Carney do? Well, he had to get to Rome, of course, to have an audience with this new woke pope. And while he was there, he glad-handed with world leaders, including the notorious Ukrainian dictator, Volodymyr Zelensky, who refuses to run for election. And do you think Zelensky wants the war to end? Because when that war ends, when there is peace, when the conflict is over, it's over for Zelensky. He will be removed. And he will not be the president of Ukraine anymore. And he will no longer be jet-setting around the world, pretending to be the 21st century's answer to Winston Churchill, as he wears that weird combination of athletic wear and combat gear. But here is Mark Carney And he brought his whole family to Rome with him. I find this just amazing. Absolutely amazing. And what's the first thing he does after forming the cabinet? Not get the House sitting again. We're still 10 days away from that. Or I guess more like a week. No, that's not what he does. He goes to Europe again, which is what he did as soon as he became prime minister. He ran to Europe to glad hand with the internationalists, the globalists, the Europeans. Is he doing anything constructive? I think this guy is going to be a huge disappointment, as we read in that article from the Post, not only for most Canadians, but for Liberal Party supporters who really thought this guy was going to deliver. And I told you from day one, he was all smoke and mirrors. He was all mendacity. He was all phony. He was all about creating a crisis so he could win an election. The fight of our lifetime? Now it's hardly matters. Hardly matters now. You're not hearing any more elbows up, are you? But let's watch a bit of Carney at work here. And here he is in Rome, doing as usual.
Okay. Very good. You satisfied, Terry? Yeah, very much. Well, Mr. President, welcome. Welcome to this corner of Canada. And may I say, in every corner of Canada is Ukraine. The Canadian people stand in steadfast and unwavering support of your leadership.
That's a lie. That is utter nonsense. Every Canadian standing in solidarity with Zelensky in Ukraine. How many more people have to die in that war before Zelensky actually gets serious about a peace agreement?
The people of Ukraine, we admire what you're doing. We admire your commitment to peace, as you've demonstrated again this week. And we underscore that there can be no peace without the full support and participation of Ukraine, and that you have our absolute support. Si je peux dire en français, Monsieur le Président, bienvenue au Canada, un petit coin du Canada ici à Rome, mais dans chaque coin du Canada, d'une océan à l'autre, il y a Ukraine. Parce que le peuple canadien a un soutien absolu pour le peuple ukrainien, et vous êtes un homme de paix. Vous l'avez démontré encore cette semaine à Istanbul, et comme j'ai dit, le Canada va vous soutenir d'ici à la fin du temps.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prime Minister. Happy to see you personally, and I wanted very much to, from the very beginning, to invite you, of course, to visit Ukraine, and I want to thank for, as you 100% rightly said, about Canadian people and very support from the very beginning of this war. We are thankful to your people, and of course I want to share with you some brief about our peace talks in Turkey.
Yes.
I think that it's important. It's important when two sides want to finish the war. And we really waited for Putin, and he didn't come. We think that he's afraid of bilateral, just direct talks. But anyway, I think that the decision of exchanging of prisoners, war prisoners.
Zelensky hasn't got a leg to stand on here. And he's really expecting Putin to listen to his dictates. The war has been over for quite some time. The only thing that isn't over is the killing. And this man has presided over this war and watched 1 million Ukrainians die. These are First World War figures. And when it's all over, this man won't be there. And I don't know what Ukraine is going to look like. at the end of this.
It's very important, 1,000 people, it's a lot. And I hope we will get this result. And of course, we have to make more pressure on Russia, on Putin, to really make peace as quick as possible. And of course, unconditional ceasefire is very, very important. That's why we need to pressure on him, more pressure, more sanctions. We are thankful to your packages of sanctions and the European leaders, and of course, the United States of America. And I want to discuss it, and your presidency in G7. Yes. All these things are very, very important. So happy to see you.
Very good.
The first meeting.
Yes. Thank you. Very good. So we have, as you heard from the President, many important issues to discuss. Very fluid situation. And one last point, I very much look forward to welcoming the President to Canada in less than a month for the G7 summit.
What the hell is Zelensky coming to the G7 for? Ukraine is nowhere near a G7 nation. But how many billions of dollars do you think Carney promised to Zelensky quietly that he hasn't even talked about? Because Carney won't talk about budgets. Carney won't talk about spending. He won't even tell you when he's lifted the tariffs. So he's not going to tell you how many more billions he's going to give Ukraine. He is running a government by decree, by executive orders, or orders in council, as they're called in Canada. That's how Mark Carney runs the government. So he's going to continue to spend money that he's not really supposed to be spending without parliamentary approval. Anyway, it is week one of this Carney government has just demonstrated its utter failure. Now
we'll always keep this in mind.
Yes,
here's the president of the European Union, a worthless organization.
Madam President, it is a great pleasure to welcome you to this little part of Canada in Rome, but soon, within a few weeks, I will be welcoming you to a bigger part of Canada for the G7. And I want to thank you for your leadership, the European Union's leadership, the close partnership we have between Canada and the European Union, and, if I may, at a time when the world is more dangerous and divided, a partnership that is ever more important, and I hope that can continue to grow. Si je peux dire just quelques mots en français.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister, for receiving me here. And first of all, congratulations on your electoral win. That is good news for Canada, and it's very good news for our EU-Canada relationship, because the story of the European Union and Canada's relationship is a good one. It's one of friendship, it's one of trust and standing side by side. And I think we need more of that, be it bilaterally, be it in NATO, be it in G7. So we are always there for each other. This is our experience with you, and joining forces. I want to thank you, I want to thank Canada for being from day one a staunch supporter of Ukraine in Russia's atrocious war against the country. We have a very strong trade relationship. CETA's success tells a lot about that.
So there they go, Ukraine again. You can bet Ukraine was on the table during Carney's trip. And I guess he's having the audience with the Pope today. And he was at the inaugural Mass this morning in Rome. But all I can say about this Carney cabinet is that this is a body that's destined to fail, because you cannot put so many incompetent people into these positions and expect anything but disaster to occur. So I think don't be surprised. Don't be surprised at all if this government falls. Because you know what should happen as soon as they get back, and hopefully the Liberals will not get those extra 2 seats they need, or peel off any NDP defectors. But this parliament should demand that this government produce a budget, not some economic statement in the fall. Remember when the last economic statement came? Literally a couple of days before winter. So Carney is about covering up, doing things behind closed doors, and not allowing any degree of transparency. And this is going to be very detrimental to our democratic way of life, if we can even talk about that anymore in Canada. Anyway, I'll be back in a minute with some closing comments. And where is it? Okay. And join me again tomorrow. I've got Anita Krishna, a Vancouver journalist. She's absolutely fantastic. And we're going to be talking about current events and all kinds of material. And we're going to have a great time. And we've got Kyle Kemper coming on the show later in the week, talk about Bitcoin. And we're going to keep covering this Carney government until it falls into the basement, because that's where I think it's going. Thanks so much for watching today. God bless this country. Godspeed to all of you. And this has been David Krayden coming at you live from Ottawa. See you tomorrow.